you're out with an op-ed that talks about just how Trump plans to create jobs, refers to curbing of trade, securing our borders, bringing back old manufacturing jobs. You say that this approach won't work. Why?
Well, we need to focus on the jobs of the future. And what we see all across the country are young women who want to learn how to code, who are teaching to learn how to code because that's where the jobs are at. I mean, our report showed that there's 500,000 open jobs right now in technology. We only graduated 40,000 computer science graduates last year. Only 10,000 of them were women. Business executives often say that their #1 problem is they can't find enough engineers fast enough. Technology has infiltrated every single industry from manufacturing to fashion to retail to medicine. And we need to retrain our workforce. You know, I always used to say, my father would say to me, you have 3 choices. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, because that's where you could make a good wage and work your way up into the middle class. And we need to have that conversation with our young people right now.
So we know that Donald Trump knows how to use Twitter, but it's unclear how much he'll actually embrace technology, embrace the benefits of STEM education. How concerned are you that the gender gap under a Trump administration, and President Obama seems to have recognized the importance of this, but under Trump, are you concerned that the gender gap in tech could get worse?
Well, I mean, we're going to work hard to make sure that it doesn't get worse. Look, I think that there's a lot of conversation both on the right and the left that all of a sudden diversity and inclusion don't matter. And that it was the overemphasis on diversity that turned a lot of voters off in this election. And I think that that's absolutely wrong. We can't roll back. I'm hopeful. I know that Ivanka Trump in particular has had a big focus on paid leave and on women and girls. And so I hope that this administration will continue President Obama's commitment to making sure that women and girls and people of color are not left out of 21st century jobs.
David, jump in here.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Well, you know, Reshma, I love what you're doing, but I also know that you ran for Congress in my district. It just so happens I was a big supporter. In order for the kinds of changes that you're advocating to really happen, don't we need not just a president, but we need a Congress that gets behind this? Do you see any real momentum and support for this kind of thing in the Congress that we do have?
Well, David, first of all, thank you for your vote. You're absolutely right. We cannot do this. And in fact, I think the states have more power and control over thinking about what we're teaching our children, you know, how to make sure that computer science is in the classroom. And, you know, Girls Who Code now is in all 50 states. You know, we've taught over 40,000 kids. You know, in the op-ed, I talk about our clubs that are in Scranton, Pennsylvania, in Nebraska. You know, we are all over the Rust Belt. Many of these areas where they've lost manufacturing jobs, they've lost, you know, auto jobs. You know, we have families that, no longer work in the car industry. Their homes have been foreclosed on, and their only shot at the middle class is making sure that their children have a shot at the middle class. And that's what we're focused on. So I am hopeful. I think that we need to spend a lot more time talking to members of Congress, helping them understand why this is important, and that time is running out. Like, we cannot afford to go one more day without making sure that computer science is taught in every single school and that every girl learns how to code.
But basically,
every child learns how to code.
A bottom-up approach is what you're recommending, not top-down, really.
I am. You know, 5 years later, we've taught 40,000 girls. We're going to teach 100,000 next year. We have not relied on federal and state funding, quite frankly. You know, I think we will continue to do the work and continue to scale. But it will be helpful if both federal and state local governments understood the magnitude of this problem and that we all started working on it now.
Let's talk a little bit more about this, Reshma, because, you know, so many people talk about the problems in the pipeline, and there's no doubt that there are problems in the pipeline. But, you know, could tech companies be more open-minded and open the pipeline and open jobs to people who don't necessarily have that specific computer science degree, but could learn or have a different kind of degree? I'm wondering where you're seeing the most resistance at the top, you know, when it comes to tech companies and employers. You know, it all sounds great to say you're supporting women in tech, but what it really comes down to how you're hiring.
Yeah, and we're holding them accountable. Because look, if you are a tech CEO right now and you are desperately looking to hire programmers, you may not care whether you're hiring women or people of color. You just want to get talent in the door. And we think that that's absolutely wrong. If you want to innovate, if you want to solve problems, if you are a tech company, you're trying to figure out how to get more women to the polls and you have no women on your engineering team, you can't solve that problem. And there are so many, and we see this all the time. You know, we see this with our girls finding solutions to where Zika's going, to finding a cure to cancer, to, you know, making sure that their voices are a part of every single solution that we're trying to look for. So companies cannot be agnostic towards gender, towards race, if they want to continue to innovate. And so we're absolutely holding them accountable, and we're absolutely going to hold them accountable right now in a time period where many of them might be getting the message that, well, you know, we don't need to focus on diversity and inclusion. We need to focus on just workforce development. We think that that is absolutely the wrong message. You cannot leave girls behind.
On that note, Reshma, you know, there's been so much talk about culture and retention issues in Silicon Valley itself. Now you have Steve Bannon, one of President-elect Trump's right-hand men. If you look at some of the things that Breitbart has published about women in tech, I mean, some of the articles I found, here's why there ought to be a cap on women studying math and science, or there's no bias against hiring women in tech, they just suck at interviews. What's your response when you hear those kinds of things?
It's shameful and wrong. And, you know, a lot of that is what we think is making the problem worse. It's turning girls off. It's making them think that they're not smart enough, that they're not good enough. It's making women opt out of this industry or leave after a couple of years. And Girls Who Code has always been a leader, has always stood up for women and girls, has always stood up for the fact that, you know, quite frankly, women are incredible coders. There's not an aptitude issue. Society has pushed women out, and we're going to continue to fight that fight.